What's happening, everyone? Welcome to the Sportscast. It's me, Andy Grant. I've got Gary Judge here with me from across the park, and you might hear our lovely producer Muskie's voice from time to time chirping in if we get something wrong. Big thanks again for everyone on Patreon who support us. You're going to be getting loads more perks this week. Next couple of weeks when I'm back. We're going to be having a Wednesday show coming out. We've got a few health and wellbeing tips and workouts to get involved with, as well as the betting show, which, by the way, won again. We had a 9-2, 5-2, wherever you might have placed your bets winner. That's the second week in a row that we've come up, and if you bet the £10 staking plan that we say, you'd be up £18 after 3 weeks, sorry. So, yeah, it's the Patreon that pays. Get involved if you can. We do appreciate the support. But getting straight back into sport this week, mate, probably boxing was the biggest news over the last weekend, apart from football, when we had Usyk, some would say controversially, win against Dubois. I don't know, in your eyes, was it controversial? Or I didn't actually see it live. It was more on the kinds of days that followed and the feedback that come out on Twitter. I've seen Tony Bellew, he's getting a bit of stick from Dubois himself. Everyone's had the say on it. Me personally, I'm on the fence with it. I listen to one expert and I'm kind of like, yeah, he's right. And then I listen to someone else and I say, oh yeah, actually, no, what? I'm proper 50-50. I don't know whether it was below the belt or not, but I don't know what you think.
I mean, there's 2 or 3 sides to that. Obviously, I'm not going to sit on the fence too much. I believe it was a low blow. But it was marginal. I think, given that there's no use of like VAR, if you like, or an equivalent in boxing, I think it was a little bit unfair in the way it was handled. I think considering it was so close to the belt, if you like, then I'm not sure that the referee applied the rules as they are, so you can't say the referee's necessarily been unfair, but it felt a little biased to me, the amount of time he got, and almost even when Usyk saying I'm ready, and the referee's insisting on him taking the full 5 minutes, I'm not sure he has to do that. And given the look in Usyk's eyes and the way he's behaving, he doesn't look a man who's really been heavily impacted by the low blow. I think if you're going to look at the conclusive replays and follow the rule books, it is a low blow. Below the belt, or it's not hit the flesh, it's below that belt line, or it's on or below the belt line. So,
but then there was all talk then of how high is his belt. I've seen
I know, and that's the point to make.
Kind of saying it should be on the referee to make sure that it's above his belly button or below it. I mean, there's so many kind of rules that I didn't even know, really.
That's the bit that I'm saying. I think the referee was a little bit biased. To say a little bit biased, I think throughout the fight, whenever there was a suggestion of Dubois trying to make it a little bit rougher than Usyk liked, the referee was trying to like disrupt it, break it up, stop it, slow it down. And look, I'm not going to go as far as to say, the referee's cheating or whatever, but you do tend to get that when you don't fight away and you fight in a hostile environment, and the referee will tend to favour the home fighter and the champion. But look, let's get it right as well. We said before, and I said, and most people said, Dubois got a puncher's chance. That was the punch we were talking about. Yeah. Where Usyk has shown some, fragility to the body in the past. He has. That was where Dubois was going to get his success. I think if you're going to watch the fight back and if Dubois watches it honestly, it took him too long to get out the traps. It took him too long to try and really put pressure on Usyk. And even after that, if he didn't think it was a low blow, he should have been consistently getting in there and trying to hit Usyk in that way. And I don't think he's done enough. And I don't think he's done enough throughout the whole fight. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
The controversy as well, not only from the punch, but then there's a much controversy on the stoppage to say that Dubois quit. I mean, I think that's what Bellew said, once you've quit once, you can't quit again type thing. And it was even almost a case of he should have beat the count. So there was the controversy over the punch, and then also him basically wanting to carry on.
Yeah, look, I called it. A lot of people called it. I thought it was going to be accumulation in the end that took Usyk, and it was. Sorry, it took Dubois. And he didn't take big punches, but if you look at the volume of punches over the course of the fight, he was clearly losing the fight by quite some distance on the cards. I think he felt that he gassed at that point, which I thought he would. He's a big man. Dubois, who relies on throwing big punches, and they take out the tank over the course of the fight. He didn't want to get back up. You know, he did beat the count hypothetically because he stood up before the actual 10, but the referee could see it in his eyes, and anyone watching it could see it in his eyes. The same look that he gave when he gave up against Joyce as well, albeit it was an eye injury that was compounding that against Joyce. But look, there's two sides to it. The first side, as you just suggested, then, is maybe he's got that mentality, and you give up once, you'll give up whenever you've got the chance. The second thing is he's very young, very, very young for a heavyweight fighter, fighting in a huge fight like he did going out to Poland. I think he's still 25. That's another 10. If you're going to 6 age, that's 10, 15 years still in the heavyweight division, if he's got the heart and if he's got the mentality to do that. So look, let's give him some credit. Daniel Dubois, he went in, fought a harder fight than I think most people expected him to. I did expect him to go, way into the later rounds. And again, I did say at his end between the 9th and the 12th, pretty much did exactly. But I think he deserves some credit. He's hurt Usyk, whether he's done it with a marginal low blow. He's took him late on in the into the fight. He's gave Usyk a difficult night. And at 25, as a British heavyweight, if we look back in the last 20, 30 years, we haven't had an abundance of fighters who could do that to a fighter like Usyk. The only fighter we've had who's gone away in the last 15, 20 years and come close to taking belts off a champion and done it in that manner is Fury, when he done it to Klitschko. So, look, I think he deserves some credit, Usyk, I do. I think them lingering doubts remain, if not deep being compounded by him not beating the count. And he's got to try and banish those demons at some point. But in all, I think it was an enjoyable night. I think it was ruined somewhat by that controversy. Whichever way you look at it, it did ruin the spectacle somewhat. But
me being a very unique motivational speaker who likes to be negative now and again, I'm going to put the slant on it that it's just boxing being same old boxing again. What again potentially was heavyweight clash, and it's a big billing, and it's Usyk fight, one of the greatest ever, and a young British fighter, like you said. At the end of the day, the kind of last taste on the tongue is controversy, which again links back to the week before or 2 weeks before, was it, when AJ fought? It should have been fighting White. Helenius, he fights, so AJ gets popped for drugs, doesn't get the fight. Helenius comes in last minute, and he also gets popped for the same thing that White gets popped for. I mean, it's just like boxing wants to shoot itself in the foot time and time again. He's come out and straight away denied it. I mean, if we've got previous boxing experiences to go off, this could take, again, months and months and months till we actually know the truth. And will we ever know the truth? I mean, it just seems to be same old boxing, which is such a shame, because it seems to go, one step forward, 2 steps back every single week.
What's really frustrated me, and I said this a few times now about the whole VADA, British Boxing Board of Control type system or process. Why are they making this public? The fight's already taken place. It doesn't seem it's conclusive, because, Helenius' team have come straight out, including Helenius personally, and said, look, I've rang AJ, I've told her, this is wrong. This is an inconclusive finding. It's got to be, because I've never used drugs, etc. But the fight already happened. Like, all right, a potential crime has taken place, if you're going to put it that way, because it is a crime. A man that size and that skill set going into a ring under the influence. But I just don't think that should be made public until it's absolutely conclusive, and until they know what the punishment is, they know exactly what the crime is. I just think it's murky, and as you say, it does put boxing in a not only a negative light, but a moody light. Everyone's asking questions. What is the drug? How was it used? That's when it should be made public. When the ins and outs.
I think now, mate, if I'm a boxer now, there's that much of it that's going on, or reportedly going on. Listen, I'm not a boxer. I've got no idea, what it takes to kind of go into a fight camp, but I'm imagining most of your mindset is training for this fighter. You don't want to have any lingering doubts to think, is this guy fighting using drugs? I mean, it shouldn't even be a thing that enters in your mind when you're preparing for a fight.
No, you're right. You're right. It shouldn't be. And I guess likewise for the boxers who are preparing for the fight, thinking about it the other way. you've got fighters who are viciously, disputing findings. There'd be a sense of anxiety when there's a test happening. You're thinking, I know I haven't done it here, but part of me is thinking, is there something wrong with the testing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, look, any boxer who's watching this who's obviously never had a positive finding will be saying that's rubbish, and I don't blame them for saying that, but you can't help but think it's not, as you just said, look, it's not a nice suggestion around, fighters, the sport itself, and again, like you said, it does leave a bit of taste on the mouth. But look, from an overall point of view, I think it does open the door or suggestion that these referees need more technical assistance, in the ring and in that situation. There's more than enough technology. People are over watching it. People who've probably got even more advanced boxers are probably zooming in, whatever, at the time it happens, rewinding it, etc. Why the hell haven't they got that type of assistance? Because Usyk was given 5 minutes there. You could have cleared that up in 30 seconds and he would have either been made to carry on, or, he would have got the time that he deserves if it was a low ball. And Dubois maybe gets deducted the point straight away. But I think even it just, as I say, there's no need for it in modern sports. I know we don't like VAR a lot of times, but if it's used, it's not the technology is the problem, is it? It's the users of the technology.
Well, you say that. You say that, I'll remind you of that point when we talk about tennis in a minute. But before we jump onto tennis, the only other little bit of boxing, which there's not much to comment on yet, but I've seen that the gloves are off between Smith and Eubank too.
It's a decent card as well, to be fair. I went to the first fight, and I was wanting to go to this fight because I think the bill's probably stronger than the last one, but very decent card. As you just said, the needle's definitely still in place. I think both fighters feel they have a point to prove in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure I'd use the term point to prove to Smith, because he, even going into this fight, he's been in with bigger fights. He's been in bigger fights. He's travelled the world and fought in those difficult places, and the likes of Canelo, he's been in there. There's the losses on his card. There's the top fighters, and there's some disputed ones in there as well. But yeah, as I say, it's a stacked card, across the board. There's lots of really talented fights on there as well. You get young Frankie Stringer, who Liam's played a part in his development.
I think he's managing Frankie, isn't he? I think.
What's that?
I think Liam's managing Frankie. I think.
Yeah, he's part of the management team. He's knew Frankie since he was a kid, and I know Frankie, and I've seen him a lot of times in the gym. I've been around him. We support him when he was younger from an education standpoint as well. But really talented kid, and definitely one if you are going to the fight, you want to try and stick around for. Adam Azim's on there as well. That should be a fairly straightforward night for him. But again, another fighter that people want to see. Florian Markey's always got value. He's got I wouldn't say something of a walkover, but he's got a fight in Dylan Moran. His last fight, he was comprehensively beaten, and it was a big build up. So I think he'll be looking to try and entertain the fighters. Good domestic dust up as well. Mark Heffron and Jack Cullen. I expect Mark Heffron to come through that, and bit of value in the Mark Heffron KO as well. I think Jack Cullen's becoming a little bit of a journeyman now, and he's being lined up to kind of for fighters to go and fight on their way up to the top. So there's definitely some value in there if anyone's looking to have a bet. Fraser Clark and Dave Allen. Again, Dave Allen back in the ring. Controversial fighter, someone who's never really took the game as seriously as he should do. I've turned to coach him recently. I can't believe he's getting in the ring with Fraser Clark, if I'm honest. But he's obviously been tempted by a little bit of money. He's suggesting that he took this camp a lot more seriously than he has done in the past. I hope he has, because he's going to need to deal with Fraser Clark, I think, this weekend. Don't really expect that one to go beyond the mid rounds, but I do expect him to come through 3 or 4, because I think Fraser Clark will probably want to just be careful and try and suss him out the first few rounds. And he certainly doesn't need Fraser Clark a shock on his CV at this stage. But that's a good little preview, or that comes up just before. I think that's the Liam Smith Eubank fight. So yeah, really good card.
Can you see it going any other way? I personally just see Liam Smith on repeat. I can't see any other. I can't see the fight ending any other way. I think it'll just be the same old Liam Smith. I think being a bit too rough and ready. and I can see another knockout coming as well.
I can't see a different outcome. I still see Liam Smith winning the fight. I think Eubank's going to be a lot more careful and cagey than he was last time. I was speaking to someone about this, and if you look back at, I haven't watched the full 3 rounds in and studied them all. But what he managed to do in the first 3 rounds is dance around Liam and to try and pick his punches and get in and out and stuff. What Liam does, and he's notorious for doing, is he just walks you down, and he'll take the punches, and he'll wait to get close, and then he'll start, unloading himself. I think Eubank's team will be doing all that they can to avoid that happening, where he's stuck in a corner or he's trading shots with him. Now, he's going to have to trade at some point, there's no doubt about that. And if they do, I don't know. I can see it going the distance this time. I can certainly see it going way beyond 7, 8, 9th. I think if he is going to stop him, it'll be in the later rounds where maybe Eubank is chasing the fight. But I do think Eubank will pick up some rounds. Beefy is a notorious slow starter. He always has been. And I'm not saying I'm surprised he hasn't said that in all these these verbal trades they've had where he said, I won the first 3 rounds. Because if you look back at Liam's fights, any of the fights that have gone beyond 6, 7, 8 rounds, he's always lost the first couple of rounds. Not that he starts slowly. He tries to work the fight out. He'll take punches and he'll take shots and he'll see what they've got to offer, and then he'll decide which way he's going to go. And he's one of the best in the game at kind of, in terms of his IQ, his boxing IQ. So, I wasn't surprised that he won the first few rounds, and I won't be surprised if he wins the first few this time. I think Liam will take the mid rounds, if you like, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. I think it'll start to get a little bit tasty around the 8th and the 9th. And if there's going to be a stoppage, I think it'll be around the 10th. But I do think he'll go the distance this time, but I think Liam will take it on the cards, unanimous if not split. But I fully expect a unanimous decision, and I do expect it to go the distance this time, more so because I think that Chris Eubank will do all that he can to stay away from it and avoid the knockout. If it gets to those later rounds, he'll be in his corner thinking, look, if I'm going to get beat here, I certainly don't want to get beat being on the canvas again, because I can't claim that was a fluke anymore. And I can maybe argue a few rounds of saying, I won this round, I won that round. It wasn't a correct decision. Yeah. But yeah, that's how I see it going.
Yeah, well, listen, big luck to Beefy. Big good luck to Beefy this weekend. Mate, that's unusual for us. 20 minutes on boxing, when normally, although we both enjoy it, it's normally a bit more footy orientated. Maybe before we jump onto footy, you mentioned VAR then potentially being used in boxing almost. VAR's been used in tennis and it failed. Normally we moan about VAR, saying that it's not the technology, it's the people who use it. This time it was actually the technology. The umpire made the decision, VAR got called in, and then the VAR wasn't working. The only replay they had of the shot was from the TV cameras, which I don't think was allowed to be used. So the original decision from the umpire was used. So again, we speak about technology, how fantastic it is. I mean, I'm sitting here on a rooftop in Venice on an iPhone, being able to record the podcast. It's great sometimes, but it doesn't work all the time, as tennis found out this week.
What match is that?
I think it might have been in the US Open. I'm not actually sure.
What's the match? No, I didn't see that. No, I was just curious what match it was. I'm sure I'll be able to find the rest of the show.
Yeah, to be honest, mate, I read more of the controversy of, I watched the match, I seen the points, but I just didn't actually take note of what plays it was. It was just a bit more, wow, God, this has actually gone wrong live. So that was interesting. And then when it comes to the actual tennis of the US Open, I mean, it's pretty much nailed on, like most Grand Slams are, for a Novak Carlos Alcaraz final. I think Novak, with his win over Alcaraz last week in Cincinnati, by him winning the first game of the US Open, he's already guaranteed to go back to top spot, I think, if he continues all the way through the tournament as expected. It should be an Alcaraz Djokovic final. And most of them are going through, as you'd imagine, apart from 2 lads who I think me and you actually bet on at Wimbledon. You had Ruud and the Greek Tsitsipas. Both went out very early on. Meanwhile, a few Brits still doing well. Murray's coming out saying he's playing the best tennis of his life. So
all the Brits went through the first round, didn't he? Male and female, which was great to see. I mean, the Tsitsipas one, I don't think you can ever. You always never be surprised with Tsitsipas whether he wins or he loses. He's almost becoming the next notoriously inconsistent player, isn't he? He's got so much ability. Still very young and that, but I would never, if I was putting money on the line, I'd never bet on Tsitsipas one way or the other. That Murray game at Wimbledon always summed him up, but he blew Murray away 1 minute and then got smashed by him.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's into the third or fourth, so it's heating up nicely. So it'll be something to keep an eye on over the weekend if you are into yourselves. Again, we said last week, I think US Open would be one of those kind of big sports events I'd love to go to, and I think the stars are out. You had Obama there, all of them there this week. I think definitely needs to be a leg podcast US Open special one.
Gonna have to raise the Patreons there if we're going to US Open.
Get your mates on Patreon signed up so we can run the ship there.
I've still got a sneaky feeling that Danny Medvedev's going to have a say in the tournament. I do. I know he lost to Zverev. So he lost to Zverev, but he's another player I think you can beat most on the day. So I still think he'll have a say. And shout out to Tommy Paul who come from 2 sets down yesterday as well to get through. Another player who's beat all of the top players on his day. I think he's beat Djokovic and certainly he's beat Alcaraz, because I think I watched that particular game a year or so ago. So another player who certainly have a say in the tournament. But I think they're 3 players to certainly keep an eye on. Medvedev more so than the other 2.
Cool, mate. And then before we move on to footy, because there's quite a bit to digest in footy, I've just seen randomly, mate, that a US college volleyball match breaks the women's attendance world record. I don't know if you're seeing this, but go on, I'll have a guess what you think it'd be.
Volleyball.
Women's US college volleyball.
Wow. 20,000.
92,000.
What?
Yeah. A college volleyball match in the United States was the unusual set for a new attendance world record, as over 90,000 packed in to watch the Nebraska Huskers beat Omaha.
Wow. The Americans will watch Janet more. They'll watch Janet multi. I mean, look, I'm not belittling volleyball. It's a tough sport to play, but
come on, though, mate. It beat the previous records. Was the Champions League match between Barcelona and Wolfsburg women. That was the previous best. That was 91,000.
I'm surprised at that many. I didn't realise it was played in huge stadiums. I had this vision in my head about the sand-based behind the pitch and bleachers around the outside.
Wow.
But yeah, on the American thing, obviously we've got to touch on the American sports, and there's been a lot of kind of mockery around it, hasn't there, in the media, particularly social media this week, with the Americans, basically the headline being that the Americans, any sport that they come up with, if they win it in their country, they're called world champions, when actually, with the exception of maybe Japan at times or Korea, who often kind of mimic them sports on the baseball side, nobody else plays it.
Yeah, I think it was one of the athletics guys. I think it might have been a 200 or 400 meter sprinter, and obviously when he wins gold, he's winning gold because he is the best in the world at sprinting, whether it's whatever it is. And he's come out and basically just mocked his own country, saying whether it's basketball or even baseball, you have the World Series, don't you? And it's only American teams playing in it. It's pretty ridiculous. And so, the funny thing is, though, it's what we've said for years, and it's like the Americans are only just hearing this for the first time. And what's upset them a bit is it's an American that's saying it. But listen, I think everyone backs what he's saying. It is such.
Not everyone, not everyone. The Americans don't back it. The Americans are saying that he's mad for saying it.
Of course, that's what the American.
I've come out and said what's he chatting and all that kind of stuff, because
Jake Canadian.
Well, World Series and stuff can include the Canadian.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, as does the MLS, but we're talking about a country here, and I'm not going to bring the Canadians into it because I really like the Canadians, but we're talking about a country here where I think it's 70% of the population don't own a passport because they don't think you have to travel anywhere else in the world. America's for everything.
But the ironic thing is, so many players who play in these sports are from all over the world as well. So it's like, you could technically win it. I mean, I don't know the ratio and percentages for Americans in sport, but you could play for, I don't know, the Chicago Bulls and have 80% Europeans in your team, but it's played only against American teams. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's all bonkers, and it's completely sums up, I think, some Americans. But yeah,
it's madness. It does make. I mean, I went over there in 2008, lived there for a few years, and for the first 6 months, that's all I've done is took the nick out to certain, claims that they make and stuff, and it's like, yeah.
Although we might have just shot ourselves in the foot, because as we were kind of slate Americans, it's just dawned on me that on our little YouTube thing, every week it gives you a recap of where your most listeners are and how many listeners you get and what videos you watch most. And we had like a crazy amount of Americans watching our channel. I don't know whether they're Scousers maybe living in America or Americans, but we might have just cussed a load of them off anyway.
I can't see Americans putting up with your nonsense, Andy. I really can't.
Hopefully it's just a load of Scousers in America, but yeah, America was a big...
Oh no, listen, anyone's welcome. Anyone's welcome to view the YouTube channel, but...
The Americans love a veteran story.
Yeah, maybe. Well, yeah, another controversial thing and nonsense thing that I'll come and spout about, because it does need touching on. It is a bit of a touchy subject, but it's the women's, the Spanish FA, the Spanish FA president has come under a lot of fire this week. I actually want to put a claim in now. I actually text Gary, Musk and Neil. I actually text Cara to drop into it as well, kind of voicing my opinion on the thing, and was warned by everyone to just keep my mouth shut and stay out of it when it was all kicking off on Twitter. But I think we can't not mention it this week on sport. So if anyone has been living under a rock, basically when the Spanish women's team won the World Cup, the Spanish president lands a big kiss at one of the
Not
players.
The Spanish president, the president of the Spanish Football Federation.
Yeah, not bringing politics already into an already dodgy story, but the football Spanish president, whatever the bloody title is, lands a big sloppy kiss on one of the players, which she obviously didn't want, and then that's basically opened up a can of worms where, just reading into it, it sounds like he's a bit of a pest. Over the years, he's done a few untoward things, and it sounds like this is a little bit of the tip of the iceberg. So what I will say on it, if that's the whole case and that's the tip of the iceberg, fair enough, get rid of him, etc. And that's what looks like they're going to be doing, although it's looked even more kind of deeper and controversial and complicated, because FIFA have now kind of told Spain to get rid of him in Spain, and said if we get rid of him, we're going to leave UEFA, which would then mean Spanish teams have to leave the Champions League and the Europa competition. So it's a whole big messy affair. But what I just want to touch upon is the incident itself. Me personally, and I know I might be in the wrong for thinking this, but if the incident is solely that kiss, I think this is all being blown out of proportion. And the reason I think that is, you go back to Gary Neville planting a kiss on Paul Scholes a good few years ago. Did Paul Scholes probably want that kiss? Probably not. It happened this week. A jockey won a race, he jumps off the horse, and there's a female owner who runs up to him, gives him a big kiss. Did he want the kiss? Maybe not. I done a quick Google, and he's got a missus. His missus probably won't be too happy either. These are moments in sport that happen that are just euphoric, you know what I mean? Our emotions get in the way. There's been many a man on the cop that I've kissed and hugged who I don't know who they are. I think these things happen, and this is a man who's in charge of the Spanish FA in the moment has ran up and gives someone a kiss. In that moment, as that context, I don't think the man should be losing a job. The caveat to that is, if you then delve a little bit deeper and you see all the other stuff that's gone on, then maybe there's a bigger case for it. But me personally, I thought at the time when it was just all around this kiss, I thought, come on, because there's just so many other examples in sport where you could say, look, that was inappropriate. How long is it until, someone runs on to, a substitute and you tap someone on the arse, you give them a slap on the arse, come on. When's that going to be inappropriate? And I just think, that's what sport's about, jumping over your mates, hugs and kisses and all that kind of stuff. And I thought there was a little bit of initially anyway, until we knew all the other stuff, I thought initially there was a bit of a witch hunt for him. That's my view.
Yes, fair enough, mate, and look, you're entitled to your view as anyone is, and as just jokingly said at the start, we just said, look, say what you want, Andy, as anyone can, but just try and make sure you got the full context, and you obviously have now. And you know, to some extent, I do. You say, look, I've played sports all my life. I'll continue to do so, whatever level that is. And if I win, if I win at a game of chess with my daughter, I'm celebrating. I'm going in the garden and giving it the biggin. So, look, I'm the first person to admit that, you know, emotions will get the better of you. But you touched on a few things there. The first one being, he's the president of the Spanish Football Federation. So he shouldn't fall into the back of the people whose emotions get the better of them because he's there to represent. To represent football. No, mate, he's not. You can't be in that position. Oh yeah, just bear with me. So, no, I'm not saying he can't get too excited and he can't celebrate it, but he shouldn't be putting himself in that position if he can't control his emotions and he can't control his desires, because that's what we're coming down to here. And you said it and brushed over it a little bit there. If you know that you're a bit of a perv, which he clearly is, and I'm not saying you can't have those tendencies and still keep them under wraps, but if you are like that and you're putting yourself in that position of running on the pitch and grabbing someone, and he's got no one to blame but himself here from a number of angles.
Well, how many kinds of presidents though? I mean,
I kind of think of it.
You know, I'm thinking I'm not so much president, so I'm thinking of maybe.
I'm not talking about presidents here. I'm talking about CEOs. I'm talking about
exactly. That's what I mean.
So the very top of a business has got to think about the business federation and society to some extent.
Let me ask you this: Wrexham just recently won promotion into the league. Ryan Reynolds, he's jumping all over, kissing all of those players.
Ryan Reynolds has recorded a Netflix documentary where all the players got tilled for it. They've all had to act for 95% of the time. They played and trained and whatever. That goes with the territory. These players haven't bought into that. They bought into playing for the nation, trying to compete for the nation, and celebrating it with the friends and family. If you just won something, let's think of it from their perspective. You just won the World Cup, the pinnacle of women's sport as it is, because maybe the Champions League doesn't get as much attention as or it certainly hasn't as much as this World Cup. I want to be with my friends, with my family, with my teammates, with the people I love. I don't want some weirdo, and he is a weirdo, let's be honest, coming up and necking me and taking away that moment. And I don't want to be made out to be the kind of bad person in that scenario as well.
Oh yeah, and
Ryan Reynolds. Let's go back to that one. Ryan Reynolds has made the lives of some of them players. They're grateful to Ryan Reynolds as Ryan Reynolds to them.
So does that mean he's going to run on and give them a kiss on the lips?
No, it doesn't. What I'm saying is there's a different relationship there, and you know there is. You know that when Ryan Reynolds is running up to them players, they're looking at Ryan Reynolds going, "Thank you. You've come in and bought our club, saved our club, give me a hell of a lot more money than I had before, helped out to get us promoted." There's a different dynamic.
Of course,
you know there is.
My only point is
them women. He needed them women more than they needed him. That's the fact of the matter. There's a dynamic. And going back to the Gary Neville and Scholes thing, there's a dynamic there as well. Gary Neville, go on.
No, you're right in what you're saying, but my only point is if you take away, like from the reports have come out, he's meant to be a bit of a sleazebag and all that. I get all that, and that's not the point I'm kind of getting at. I'm saying if this is just an incident of a man kissing a woman at the end of they just won a championship.
But forget about the situation, Randy. She doesn't want to be kissed.
Well, that's the point. Does anyone in those moments? I don't know.
It doesn't anyone. It does anyone. Mate. I don't think that. In that moment, I get what you're saying with the Gary Neville, Paul Scholes thing. He might not have wanted
Paul Scholes.
He's not been top of his list going, I can't wait for Gary Neville to kiss me. But I don't think he was going, I don't want to be near that person again. That's what she was saying. She wasn't. She was always saying that kiss is another example of how he's abusing his power. And Gary Neville weren't abusing his power as captain. Gary Neville's going up to one of his childhood friends who's just scored a massive goal in a massive game for Man United. Mm-hmm. Again, different dynamic, completely different dynamic. But I just think you've got to respect the person in that situation who's letting it. Think about how much that's taken for her to say that. It would have been much easier. It would have been much easier for her to ignore that. And that's the big one.
And in no way, yeah, you're right. it took a lot for her to come, and no way should she be made the scapegoat. My only thing was, it's one of those kind of men and women thing where it happens in so many other it happened in racing literally last week. You know, a young jockey, you know, early 20s, jumps off his horse, he's just won the race, and there's a 40-odd-year-old woman who owns the horse, runs up to him, the same case that the Spanish football person's done with that player. That's my only point in it. It happens.
Oh no, a lot. And as I say, mate, you're entitled to your opinion, and look, if you're going to put the again position of power in there, then yeah, it should be raised. Now, if the jockey is a little bit uncertain about, and he's questions about it, and he's like, I don't know, and look, you shouldn't be put in that position. I think is the answer to the question. And I agree to the same degree that a jockey really in that kind of micro world is a bit of a minion. He needs the owners to like him because he needs to get good rides, and he wants the good rides, and he wants the money, and he's probably had that conversation with his missus. Look, I can't say anything about her. So
it's not looked upon like that. It's not on the same level, is it? So
no, it's not, because this owner hasn't got. Look, you kind of brushed over something at the end, which was the main point of this whole saga, is that he has got a history, and the whole coaching staff and the whole team wouldn't be fighting against it if it was just, you know, if it was just a spur of the moment kiss. I'm fairly certain that he would have went, look, I know him, he's a good guy, blah, blah, blah. I know his family are like, he was clearly overjoyed for us. He was the first person to come and watch us and train and blah, blah. I don't think that was the case.
No, exactly.
And
that's the point I'll make again. My opinion of that was when I didn't know all of that. Clearly, everything's come out, and it sounds like this is just the tip of the iceberg. So he clearly, it sounds like he deserves what he's going to get coming to him. So we just had to kind of go into it. I know we had slightly.
We did, and as I say, you've always got an interesting angle, and I don't think it was. Look, you've got a door to yourself. I don't think there's any sexism in it or anything like that. Far from it. But I think you raise an interesting point, and certainly if I'm going to suggest that there's a power dynamic there and he's abusing the position of power, an owner abusing their position of power, if she's that way inclined, it is the same example. But I don't think from you know, her background and personality, without doing some private detective work on her, that she's that type of person, in the same bracket as him.
I tell you what, though, it's better talking about it on a podcast than it was trying on Twitter. I would have got absolutely annihilated there.
Yeah. Good job you let me do most of the talking.
Yeah. On the last bit of controversy, the type of thing as well. One thing we did miss is it involves kind of women's sport again. It was the swimmer. I don't know. I think this story might have came out. It happened a couple of years ago, but it seemed to resurface this week, and it was a transgender swimmer who was basically he was ranking around like 400th, I think it was, in the world of men's
college swimmer, wasn't he?
College swimming. He's then, I don't know whether he's went full woman. I mean, listen, any transgender women who are listening, I don't know the right terms, but he's transitioned to be a woman by, let's say, not completely going there all the way, and he's ended up swimming with quite a bulge, let's say, in a swimsuit, and ends up becoming number one swimmer in the country in college swimming, which caused...
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest as well, and if we're going to be really cynical about this, and as you just said, Andy, there'll be people transgender who will listen to this podcast now and have done it with, you know, after years and years and years of not feeling right, etc., etc. There's no two ways about it. William Thomas, who became Leah Thomas, so we didn't even change it. You know, we just literally deleted a few names on Microsoft Word, a few letters, and left the Leah from William in there. Leah Thomas is doing it to cheat and to try and become the best, which he was never going to become as a male, and that needs to be eradicated, because it's a joke. It is a joke. It's literally it's done their hands this week because it's a joke, and it's clearly abusive of rule change, because they have obviously changed rules for the better to allow people who are making a decision that's based on the right reasons to still do what they love doing. And look, we spoke about the whole boxing thing and the fact that it needs to be assessed on a person by person, sport by sport basis. In this particular instance, he's using his physical prowess as a male to win a competition that was designed for females. That, for me, where it starts and ends. It's a joke, and
that's it. Yeah.
if you are looking for it, if you are looking for the story, it was William Thomas who transitioned to Leah Thomas. And if you look at the male and female, if you like, they're the same person physically, exactly. If anything, Leah Thomas looks like, you know, she's done a bit more working out than William did. She's worked a bit harder, and that's just not fair.
No, it's not fair. You know what else is fair as well? I feel like there's just loads of controversy and loads of things that aren't fair this week. But one story, and this might be really me scratching the kind of battle with just things that pissed me off this week. I saw there was a fan who jumped on the pitch and ran and hugged Haaland after he scored last week. This fan turned out to be Terry Flanagan, who is a retired British pro fighter.
Very good fighter, by the way.
Yeah, I think he only got beat twice, you know, proper bit of a legend in Manchester. Listen, he jumped on the pitch, fair play to him, whatever, got his hug with Haaland, great, whatever. What I thought was a bit mad was TalkSport ran with the story. Man City fan who celebrated Haaland's goal. It was a former world champion boxer. Now, that's the kind of story. You know, if that was me or you running on, it'd just be hooligan, you know, Gary Judge runs on the pitch, you know, this needs to be banned, this needs to be stopped. I normally like Simon Jordan and Jim White, but they would have been the first people jumping on the high horse saying about fans are ruining the game by running on the pitch. We needed to be, you know, eradicated. Yeah, when it's a world champion or a former world champion boxer, it's, well, ex-pro jumps on and gets his hug with Haaland. I thought, just a bit, I didn't really understand that whole take from TalkSport.
Yeah, let's get it right, though. If it was me, that's what would have happened. If it was you'd have been on the photo with the team the next week, probably. You'd have been hired by Pep. Understand?
Then you minions would have all got fucking through down the back. I would have been. Well, I just thought.
You're right, yeah.
That pissed me off.
It's a hypocrisy, isn't it? As you say, the amount of times now, whether the game's live or whether it's post game, the amount of times the fans are vilified for coming on the pitch. Which, look, in most instances, it's correct. It's the safety of the players or whatever. They're playing the game that we all love and whatever. At times, people can go too far with it, and in those instances, it's not worth it, you know, to allow people on the pitch. But no, it's hypocrisy at its finest and typical from the media, really.
I mean, we may as well continue with the controversy and the hypocrisy, mate, and talk about refereeing, because I think it was none more on showcase than in the Liverpool-Newcastle game. I didn't actually get to see it with me being away, but from seeing the highlights and speaking to the lads, you know, you had yellow card for Trent for throwing kicking the ball away, which, by the way, should have been a free kick a second earlier when he got shoved off the pitch. And then, so there was a yellow card for Trent for kicking the ball away. And then nothing later when Gordon kicked the ball away, and then Nunes was booked down for kicking the ball away. So you've had three of the same things in the same match, and only two got a yellow and one got away with it. Some players have been booked for time wasting, whether it's a bit, some haven't. I think it's just been a bit of a joke, as in the time wasting stuff, the refereeing, the yellow cards, and it doesn't seem to be any better. What are we now? The fourth game coming up this weekend. It just seems a bit. I'm a bit miffed with it, to be honest.
Do you know what I think, honestly? And we spoke about this a little bit last week. Referees human beings, aren't they, at the end of the day? And I think you're in that situation as the only player. And that's the difference here. And I think people forget it. If you're on a team, are you a player? Because people say, players make mistakes, referees are allowed to make mistakes. Referees are the only people, the one person. I know they've got, you know, the linesmen or whatever, who are thinking a joke 90% of the time, by the way. They do nothing to help the referee. At times, they wait for the referee to make the decision, then put the flag up. But going back to the referee, they're literally the single man on that pitch, and the focus is on it when there's a decision to be made or a decision isn't made. Now, if you've got a rule change that's coming or a priority this year, which is about trying to stamp out time wasting, trying to speed the game up, etc., and you've also got your own beliefs on the way the game should be refereed, in the heat of the moment, I think you can become conflicted there. Not only that, you've also got the home fans, they're obviously on your back. So if I'm a referee who believes that, and maybe not completely on the sides of we need these bookings for time wasting and there needs to be these 10, 12 minutes of extra added on time, I'm going into that match having to consciously tell myself, if someone kicks the ball away or waste time, I need to book them. But then you get 20, 30 minutes into the game and you believe you're refereeing the game really well and it's going the way you want it to. You forget about that, I think. And then the crowd remind you and it's like, oh God, and you're like shaking into action because they are, you know, whether we like it or not, the best referees are like professional athletes. They get into a mindset, they're focused on the game, they're in the zone, if you like. And I think the best referees, when they're like that, are refereeing the game really well. But then they've got these other factors that are poking at them. It's like to say, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. And I think at times they can come across as being biased. But I think if you're going to be supportive, you know, if you're going to be fair to referees, I think you've got a hell of a tough job with the whole VAR thing, with all these priorities. And listen,
super hard job. And I think if you bring in new rules as well, as seeing got brought to our attention there, that, you know, the whole kind of players waving the imaginary yellow card. McAllister done it, got booked. Joe Linton done it twice. It's fine, do you know what I mean? And it's like, I think the referees need to come together. I mean, you might have been a referee anyway who didn't like that, and I've always booked it. But now the rules are coming out, you've got to do it, and you've never really done it before, and you're forgetting. And again, it's referees are people as well, which I think maybe sometimes easy to forget.
Yeah, I think so. And I look at you've maybe didn't get the rubber degree in the time weekend, but you certainly got the rubber degree in the end. And yeah, so we're going to go on controversy and on stories. The story was just obviously coming back with 10 men, and obviously Núñez, which we both said in our previews and before the season that we expected Núñez to step up and be a big part of it this season. He didn't start the first few games, but he's shown, hasn't he, that he's got that, I wouldn't say mercurial talent, but he's got that frustrating talent, hasn't he? The ability to do the brilliant things, but can he do it consistently?
Well, one stat which I could not believe when I seen it was in his first 45 games, Suarez and Núñez have both got 17 goals. Now, Suarez is probably the best player I've ever seen with my own eyeballs in a live stadium. If Núñez is hitting the same targets he did 45 games in, wow. I mean, considering that some of the players Suarez had around him, Núñez has got the players he's now got around him, he's in a much better team than Suarez was. It does give me hope that actually have a shaky start. You know, he's not even playing sometimes, you know what I mean? He has to start the first 3 games. If he's hitting the same numbers Suarez has, then I think Klopp could get, you know, a right player out of him. I think there is a player in there, no doubt about it, but I couldn't believe that stat. He's made the same start essentially as Suarez to his career. Unbelievable.
Well, I was at credit to Klopp, to be fair. You know, he just generally manage players quite well. I think if you can see a talent there and there's a way to manage that person and manage them into the team, he generally does do it quite well. Just a bit of credit to one of my mates, actually. I was at a golf tournament on Sunday and we were sitting there watching the game after it. Will Lewis, he's a big red, and he was literally saying that exact point. He said, listen, what about Suarez? He said, all the Bill fans, he said, almost to a man, after the first 30 games, he's not good enough. He missed too many chances, blah, blah, blah. He said 20 games later, he's the best thing since sliced bread. He said he reminds me a lot of him. So he said exactly that, and it wasn't based on stats. He said it was just based on perception and the naked eye. So, yeah.
And on that note, mate, I got a little bit of flack this week for posting in the Liverpool group chat I'm in. Yeah, not the first time, for one of my ludicrous comments, which I didn't think was so ludicrous, but apparently it was. I was the only one who felt this way. And my point was, you know, if a silly offer comes in for Salah, you know, 120, 150 from Saudi, I'd let him go. And it wasn't so much that I don't rate Salah. Of course I do. He's one of the best players ever. You know, he's guaranteeing 30 goals a season for the past 6 seasons. He's unbelievable. I love Mo to bits. My point would be, though, I think he's 31 now. 120 million for a player with just 2 years left on his contract is a lot of money. You know, if it's 120 plus, it's a lot of money. And the fact that we've got, you know, Núñez, we've just spoke about him then, he's not even getting a game at the minute. He's getting kept out the team. You know, if Núñez can go in there alongside Jota, Diaz, you got Gakpo there, there's 4 players there who are, you know, 120 million for Salah at 31 with 2 years left, knowing that in December you could go and get a really good striker. And you've got Núñez, Jota, Gakpo, Diaz. I don't think it's the worst bit of business in the world. I think the only thing that upsetting a few Liverpool fans maybe is how late it is in the transfer window. We wouldn't be able to get nothing in. But again, my point would be, you've got 4 players there who should be anyway. Let's face it. If Diaz, Gakpo, Jota, and Núñez can't score goals, I mean, it's not the problem. You've let Salah go, because you've got 4 super world class internationals that aren't scoring goals. I mean, that should be where you're looking as the problem. And then come January, you've got 120 million plus to go and buy a striker if needed. So yeah, it caused a bit of a few eyebrows to get raised at the idea of me being okay with Salah leaving. But I'm sure you'd want Salah to go as well. But yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. I think it makes complete financial sense. If anything, it's not even makes sense. You'd be mad to turn that down. I think it's believed, or if you're going to believe the papers, nearly all of the the main media outlets are posting that 118 million is the bid that's incoming from Al Ittihad this week. So that that's there or thereabouts what you were suggesting. So if you're going to believe that, then
yeah.
Listen, I think there's no way that Liverpool will turn that down. We know the Liverpool owners, and I'm not criticising the owners here, even as a Blue. Most Reds don't, apart from being frustrated at times that they don't put their hands in the pocket. They're very shrewd in the way they work. They believe in monetising talent at the right times. And if there's a right time to monetise this talent, with all the factors being as they are, it's now. There's not a chance you're getting 120 million off anyone else except a Saudi team.
Yeah, exactly.
And for every month that goes by,
it's next season. What he got for 60, 70?
Every month that goes by, that's getting lower and lower, that offer, isn't it? Because they can.
I think the last bit on the Reds as well, before we talk about the Blues, was it seemed like it might be a busy few days. They've got the young lad from Bayern Munich. What's his name?
Gravenberch.
Gravenberch, yeah. Again, I'm on holiday maybe, and I'm getting frustrated just with looking on Twitter. But the amount of people who are an expert on this young lad, I mean, he's 21. He played, 26 times for Bayern last season.
We didn't say this, mate. He played for Ajax for a good season and a half as well.
How many lads you know? Ajax every week in, week out.
Me, not week in, week out, but I watch a lot of footy, mate. And I thought, I was convinced the Premier League team were going to sign him before Bayern did. If anything, it kind of went under the radar when Bayern took him from Ajax. I think
my only issue though is if he's 21, he's already got Champions League experience. He's played for the national team. If he's this going to be world class player, why Bayern letting him go for less than 40 million?
No, listen, he's not world class. I think it's been proved at this moment. Yeah, well, look, how many players can you put in that bracket who've got potential to be world class? You probably let a few of them go down the years as well, where you go like, when's this going to happen for him? And I think if we're honest, and again, I don't know the ins and outs of what Ajax's strategy is. Ajax are a selling club. That's you know that from experience. Like no, I know, but I'm going back a little bit. Ajax were wrestling to keep him. The first offer that came in, it was decent. They sold him. Ajax are a selling club, but they sell, at a relative value. I think he's paid at the time what could be considered to be over the odds for Suarez, and he's had to push that to what he's willing to pay. It was done fairly quickly, that Gravenberch deal. I think there might be a bit of an attitude thing there. If you watch the lads and you look at it, his raw stats and his physical, capabilities, he's got all the ingredients to be like Bellingham-esque. Do you know what I mean? He gets up and down the pitch. He's a really tall lad. He's
only scored last season.
No, but what I mean, though, in terms of his capabilities, and Ajax, he's not Bellingham. He doesn't play as high up the pitch as Bellingham. But if you watch them for 20 minutes, you're like, wow, this kid's got something. There must be an attitude thing for me. There must be. As I say, I actually really quick to allow that deal to happen. He's never really established himself in the Bayern team.
No,
I don't know. I think if you're going to be cynical about it, and as you're suggesting here, there must be something that there's a miss with him, because it does. When you see him on the pitch, you wonder why he's not playing every week.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I hope he's an absolute world beater. I know nothing about the lads. There will never be a clip on me saying he's crap or he's boss. I hope he's going to be great. It just make me laugh how everyone is a bloody expert on.
Pretty sure he came to Anfield, played well against you, to be fair. But I'm fairly certain he did, actually. And I'm sure he come to Anfield and had a decent game against you. I remember saying again, Muskie, you might remember this, but I remember some of the Reds commenting, and I was like, he's a really good player. And when he went to Bayern shortly after that, I think your observation in terms of the naked eye and just looking at the fact that he's been at Bayern for a year or so and hasn't really established himself, that would definitely be the angle that I would be looking at if I was Jurgen Klopp. Because I'm not sure. Listen, Jurgen Klopp knows the German league. He knows the managers' teams. If he's happy with the signing, listen, like let's get it right. He's miles better than what you've got in that holding position at the moment. There's no doubt about that. So he will improve the squad, if not that first 11.
Maybe we'll finish off. Then there was a few other little stories. I was going to just touch on, but we're literally just touching them because we're getting up to the hour point, and I do want to talk about Everton. But there was a few little stories. If anyone is registered on The Athletic, I think there was a decent article on the kind of top managers in the game now and how they all seem to be around that central midfield road. Obviously, you've got Pep, Arteta's doing well, you've got Xavi doing well, and just there's a decent article on, kind of what makes a kind of good football manager, from what position almost you kind of need to be playing from. There was another decent article as well about the Italy-England under 16 game that drew 170 scouts, as there's a bit of a clamour now for football scouts to kind of get all the players signed up, because there's going to be new rules coming into the agency game, I think, in the next few months, where the tests become a lot more stringent. So I think there's a bit of a everyone, let's try and get a decent player before we need to pass this really hard test. And then the other one was linking back to Everton. It looks like Sigurdsson is set to join a Danish club, Lyngby. He hasn't played for 2 years, but looks set to be. He's 34 as well in September, and he looks set to be off to Denmark, which brings us on to Everton. So there's a few little stories there if you want to go and read The Athletic, but we're just getting up to the hour mark. We'll do the last 5 or 10 on Everton. And start with Sigurdsson. I even forgot about him. I mean, that's just a mad end to a career, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Look, whichever way you're looking at it, I'm not going to comment on the legal side of it. It's sad that a player, his career's fizzled out the way it is now again.
He was a
guilty
player,
of not good.
What? He was a player, wasn't he?
He was a player. Look, as a player, forget about, again, the personal side, the legal side, whatever happened, didn't happen. Let's just leave that alone. I really like Sigurdsson as a player. And, look, I think the Everton fans thought they were getting something that they weren't. It was going to be this all-encompassing Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Paul Scholes type midfielder. He was never that at Swansea. He was someone who drifted in and out of the game, but give him a chance from a dead ball and put him in a position where he can create a chance, and he invariably do that, and he did do that for us. And the stats tell you that as they did at Swansea. Good player. Obviously, we paid over the odds, which is not the first time in that period for a particular player, but we lost. Whether Everton, I'm sure Evertonians, given the grace of a couple of years now, and Adam seeing what's happened since then, will be the first to admit we've missed him without doubt. If only just for the set plays, we've not had someone since that point. Who's been able to put a decent ball into the box. And you look back at the period we had under Carlo Ancelotti doesn't consistently play crap players. He plays almost every minute under Carlo Ancelotti, and he always played him. And he played him the reason that he knew that give us that ball, a corner, a free kick. He's a man who likes to win, and Sigurdsson helped us win a lot of games. That we haven't won since.
Going on to then the players that have come in, mate. So, in fact, before we talk about the signings who made an impact last night, I know you were there, or Wednesday night you were there. Let's go back to the weekend against Wolves. On last week's show, we said the next 2 games, Wolves and Sheffield United, you need to be getting a minimum of 4 points. Now, the most you got to get now is 3. Another game where it was just so obviously apparent that you need a striker. I think their goalie makes some unbelievable saves. I mean, that one where he's running back into his net and he has to dive into his net and clip the ball over the bar was unbelievable. I think it reminds me a bit of Yeti Dudek's save against Shevchenko in the Champions League. It's kind of like you may as well just say we're going to win the league now, win the Champions League now. That was just kind of like, you are not going to score today.
Yeah, and look, I think things go like that, don't they, when you haven't got a clinical finisher, because you're giving the keeper half a chance that you shouldn't be giving him. Do you know what I mean? I know it's a great save, don't get me wrong, but I think there was a lot of that at the weekends. There was a comment made by Millsy, who's on Across the Park podcast with me. His son went to match with him, and he shouted at the top of his voice, apparently after 80 minutes, "Why is that goalie catching every cross?" Because their keeper is just coming and taking everything. Now, you look at it, great from the goalkeeper's perspective, but obviously we're giving that goalie a chance. We're putting the corner into the same position every time. And there's a lot of that about our play at the moment. It's predictable. It's lacking imagination. It's lacking creativity. And the players are lacking confidence. I think put all that together, and you're going to look like a team who's hard on luck. I think it's, as you just suggested, it's as simple as the fact that we haven't got players that are accustomed to scoring goals on a
And it's just in the stadium, because we put out a question. We had loads of people, by the way, on the Instagram podcast on mine and the podcast get in touch with questions. And one of the questions is, is the negative effect of the toxic atmosphere, is that kind of having an effect on the Blues, or is that too early on in the season?
I wouldn't call it a toxic atmosphere. I think it's any atmosphere becomes toxic when you're not playing well and you're making mistakes, basic mistakes, missing chances, not scoring goals. For the first half, and actually for the first 80 minutes at the weekend, we were fully behind the team, willing them on. Obviously, it was helped by the tributes, unfortunate tributes from Michael Jones. The fans. It was an amazing atmosphere, and we were again unfortunate not to score in the 26th minute. The ball bounces to Tarkowski after a scramble in the area, and he blazes it over the bar. And it would have been so fitting for him to score at that moment. But it's frustration, born out of frustration. I wouldn't call it toxic whatsoever. It's not toxic. No one's like begging for blood of the players and managers at this stage. They're just so frustrated at what's going on, and the fact that we've not purchased a striker or anything that resembles a striker, and have not put the tools in place that the manager needs. The 2 home games that we've had so far, and I think most Evertonians will agree with that, on a normal, in a normal time when you've got an half-decent forward, you're winning that all day. As you saw with the XG in the first game against Fulham, it wasn't quite as high against Wolves, but it was still heavily weighted in our favour. Yeah. The manager is putting a team out, pretty much the best team we can put out, and probably the most suitable system for that team to win those games. The players are getting in the positions to score the goals to win those games. We're just not converting the chances. And at any level, particularly in the Premier League, if you don't convert them chances, you're invariably going to give the opposition its opportunity. And at the weekend, I thought it was defensive frailties that led to their goal. I think it was a great goal from them. They've lumped the ball into the area. Pickford hasn't come for it. The defenders have been less stranded, and they've scored. I'm not going to come on this podcast again and start, having a pop at Jordan Pickford, but for me, it's his fault, that goal. And you look at Jose Sarr and the other, the opposing goalies came and claimed 8, 9, 10 crosses that day. That was his chance to come and claim it. He hasn't done. That's caused, confusion amongst Tarkowski and Patterson, and he scored. But
what?
It's frustrating.
When I bring up I wouldn't even call them controversial, but your comments that got taken out of context was, this striker that you have brought in now, I don't think you'd have actually paid any money for him up front, have you? It's
probably not. Probably not.
Yeah. And it's just that idea again that, you suggested about selling Pickford and bringing in a player. If you just sold Pickford and had a bit longer, a bit more time, if you'd sold him early on in the transfer market, got 40, 50, 60 mil for him, pretty sure you would have had goals in the bank by now, which is just a mad thing for me. Do you know what I mean? It was like, you made a great point. It was maybe taken out of context by some, I want to call them idiot fans who didn't understand the point. You sell a really good asset and bring in, things that you need more, because he could be the best goalie in the world. The maximum thing you can then get, maximum points you can get in the game. Do you know what I mean? You need people to put the ball in the back of the net, and thankfully you have brought someone in now who made an instant impact in the game on Wednesday night. But I mean, is it going to be enough? I mean, this weekend will tell, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to that point briefly, that was exactly my suggestion, is that, and that's what Temrin's doing in this market. And I'm sure if Thelwell was ever honest about it, the reason why we haven't been able to bring players in the main, and I'm not saying completely, because I think that the team in general, Thelwell's team, have not done well enough bringing the players in, is that we're going to clubs and saying, we'll give you 30 million, but you're not getting nothing now. We'll give you 5, then 6, then 7, whatever it is. Part of that is to do with financial fair play. We know how it's being twisted at the moment. We don't pay nothing up front now, or we only pay 5 million up front now. It only goes in the books, and is only on the record for this year, if you like. So I think part of it's to do with that. But the other part is the fact we haven't got the cash there to actually give them right now, if you like, in the bank. So I think selling a player, whether it was Pickford or someone else, would have freed up the funds to be able to get these players in a lot earlier. And I think if you were to give Dyche that choice at the start of the window, he would have bit your hand off. Yeah. But we are where we are. And going back to your point, I was at the game last night. The first half was as bad as we've been in a long, long time. Look, when you break the game down, I'm not going to fully analyse it. John Castor clearly must have put a hell of a lot of work, and we can't see that from where we're sitting. We can just see that our players are coming off at times second best to it. the bottom team in League Two, but they must have put a hell of a lot of work in that first, 60, 70 minutes to just close us down at every moment. And fair play to them. That's how you level the playing field in footy. You should work harder than the opposition. Once they eventually tired, we could have scored 4 or 5 in that last 20 minutes. But the biggest factor was in the first half, every time the ball was going up to Chimiti or it was going up to any of the forward players, he just had no clue as to how to kind of manufacture an opportunity. The minute that he come on the pitch, you put balls into channels, he's getting there first. You put balls up in the air, he's winning them. Putting balls into his feet, he's making it stick. Putting balls in the area, he's getting on the ends of it in the post. You can just see night and day. He's a proper centre forward, and I'm not going to go and say he's the new Lukaku or anything like that, but he's head and shoulders above anything we've signed in the last few years, and you can see that in the first 45 minutes.
I think it's really difficult, and if you kind of put your neck on the line and say he's going to be this, he's going to be that, like he's just said, then you're playing against the bottom of League Two, and he's got himself a goal. Great, I mean, that's all he can do. He can score when he gets the chance. I think the big tests are going to come when he's playing in the Premier League week in, week out, and that first test comes Sheffield United away. It's going to be a tough game. They need to get off the mark as well. And I think it is going to be a really, I mean, I don't want to see 6 pointers so early on, but I mean, you just have got to. I mean, I've won, we speak about on Patreon, I do the betting show, I've won the betting show the last 2 weeks. I've actually got Everton in my bet this week, so call me crazy, but you've got to start winning.
Crazy.
I think it'll be this weekend where you will. I'm hoping for the Patreon legends who pay the subscription and I give the tips to. I hope they do win for our sake, and I mean, surely you do too.
Yeah, look, I think it is a must-win game. I do, given the fact that we've started so poorly, we've lost games that we should have won. I think at the start of the season, Sean Dyche may have had this down as a look, we'll take a point there, but he would have also had them 2 home games as I expect us to get 3 points there. Given the fact we've lost them, I think we need to make up some ground. I think we need to capitalise on the fact that Sheffield United is still thinking, where's our first win coming from? Like we are. Yeah. Sheffield United, unlike us, went out on penalties last night at home, which would have hurt them. Whether the manager will admit it or not, it's still not nice to lose a game of football, particularly when you've lost your first 3 in the league. It's a huge game. I'm hoping that our more seasoned Premier League players come to the fore, and some of the players who maybe haven't contributed as well as they have done so far. When I previewed last night's game, I said what we need above all else on Wednesday is to win the game, get a couple of goals and a couple of our forwards to get on the score sheet. All 3 of those boxes have been ticked, regardless of how poor the first 60 minutes were. We've got 2 of our forwards, 2 new signings, Danjuma and Beto, both got off the mark. That'll do them the world of good, regardless of the opposition. And hopefully we can just carry that into the weekend and use that bit of momentum we've got versus the 0 momentum, if not negative momentum, the Sheffield United have got.
Yeah, I thought last night, actually, I had to bet on you last night. Sheffield United let me down while Everton won. I thought just get through, just get that winning feeling back. Hopefully a few of your players can get on the score sheet, and you'd like to think that'll do the world of good for the weekend. We've gone over a bit, 1 hour 10. I know you'll no doubt have a busy day, and I want to go and explore the streets of Venice. So we'll leave it there, but I think we've got through quite a bit there. As always, mate, thanks for your time. Thanks everyone for listening. Don't forget, get on Patreon, support the boys, and then we'll have the betting show that'll come to you first. Actually, while this comes out, it'll be out on Friday. And yeah, have a boss weekend. Nice one.
We just say before we go, sorry Andy, quick shout out to Macca, who was seen in the gym. He's a big red Macca. You may or may not know him, but seen him in the gym yesterday, and he was like, I can't wait for the Sportscast this week. So Macca, really fun for supporting us, and hopefully he's lose this week.
Yeah, thanks for all the support, everyone. See you next week.